Queen Esther, the Morning Star by Mordecai Gerstein. It is told that King Ahasuerus of Persia, whose kingdom stretched thousands of leagues from India to Ethiopia, gave a great banquet for all the princes, governors, and satraps over whom he ruled. The banquet lasted for 6 months. Each day 100 different delicacies were served on golden plates that were used only once and thrown away.
"Am I not the richest of kings?"
Ahasuerus asked his guests.
"And is not my queen the most beautiful of all queens?"
"You are the richest of kings," agreed all the princes, governors, and satraps, "but we have not seen your queen. Where is she?" And so the king summoned Queen Vashti to come and display her beauty. But Queen Vashti was in the woman's palace, having her own banquet for all the princesses and wives of the governors and satraps over whom she ruled. "Tell the king I will not come," she said.
"Won't come?" roared the king. "I'll teach her! Guards, throw her out! Let her beg in the streets! I will find a new, more beautiful queen, one that obeys me."
And the king commanded that all the beautiful young women of his kingdom be brought to the palace, so that he might choose the most beautiful. Out of all the beautiful young women of his kingdom, one seemed to shine and leave the others in darkness. Her name was Esther, which means morning star.
"My new queen," the king announced, "shall be Esther."
Now Esther lived in the care of her cousin Mordecai, who, when her parents died, had raised her as his own daughter. "Dear cousin," Esther said, weeping, "I don't want to be queen and live apart from you. No man may visit me except the king, and I fear him." "He can be foolish," said Mordecai, "and cruel. Be careful. Do not tell him who your family is, or that you are a Jew. There are those at court who hate our people. But know that every day I shall wait at the palace gate for news of you." And one day, as Mordecai waited and worried at the palace gates, Haman, the king's prime minister, came by. Haman was an evil schemer. He'd coaxed the king to order everyone to bow down to him, but Mordecai did not bow down.
"Who are you that will not bow to me?"
snarled Haman. "I am Mordecai, a Jew. I bow only to God."
"I'll have you hung," raged Haman, "and all your people too."
That night Mordecai dreamed of darkness, thunder, and screams, and out of the darkness 2 roaring dragons rose up to battle each other. People cried for help, and their cries became the stars in the sky. Then the morning star blazed, and the sun rose. The innocent were saved, and the wicked were destroyed. Mordecai awoke. "What is the meaning of this dream?" he wondered. It was exactly midnight. At the same moment Haman was saying to the king,
"Your Majesty, there is a people who have strange customs and obey only their own laws. They scorn you and your rule. They are dangerous, and you must rid your kingdom of them."
"What people are these?"
said the king with a yawn, for it was past his bedtime.
"The Jews,"
said Haman.
"I'm tired," said the king. "Do with these Jews as you wish."
And he went to sleep. But gleeful Haman and his wife stayed up all night casting lots called Pur for the date when the Jews would be destroyed. And the lot fell on the 13th day of the 12th month, Adar, in the Hebrew calendar. Then Haman sent letters to all the princes, governors, and satraps from India to Ethiopia, which said,
On the 13th day of Adar, all the Jews, young and old, men, women, and children, are to be killed. Seize their possessions and send them to me.
He sealed the letter with the king's ring. When they learned of Haman's letter, all the Jews in Persia, from India to Ethiopia, put on sackcloth and ashes, and wept and wailed. And Mordecai at the palace gates did the same. Then he understood his dream. The two dragons stood for Haman and me, he realized, and the morning star was Esther. She must save our people. I must get a message to her.
I will take your message,
said a voice. It was Queen Esther's servant, though some say it was the angel Michael in disguise. Tell the queen, said Mordecai, that she must tell the king she is a Jew, and plead with him to save her people from Haman. And Esther sent back a message and said, Tell my cousin that the king has not called for me in 30 days, and if anyone, servant or queen, comes to the king without being called, she is put to death unless he raises his golden scepter. Tell my dearest queen, said Mordecai in return, that she must take the risk, or all of us, young and old, men, women, and children, shall be put to death. When Esther heard this, she put on the most beautiful robes, jewels, and perfumes the king had given her, and went to see him without being called.
Who comes uninvited?
He thundered.
Do you wish to die?
But when he turned and saw Esther, he was overcome with love.
Whatever you wish,
he said, raising his golden scepter.
Even half my kingdom is yours.
I wish only, said Esther, to beg.
Yes, said Haman, who had just come in. What is it?
To beg, stammered Esther, thinking quickly, that you both come to a banquet I will prepare for you tomorrow.
A banquet? Thought Haman. The queen must favor me.
That evening Haman started home happily, until he met Mordecai at the gate.
You and your people are doomed, Jew,
sneered Haman.
Bow down.
Never, said Mordecai. Haman arrived home, his eyes popping with rage.
I am Prime Minister of Persia, he screeched to his wife, and all the lands from India to Ethiopia. I dine with the king and queen, but that Jew Mordecai won't bow to me. Why wait to kill Mordecai? Said Haman's wife. Build a gallows tonight and tell the king to hang him in the morning. Brilliant, cried Haman happily again. I'll make it 50 cubits high.
And Haman and his 10 sons set to work building the gallows where Mordecai would hang. But meanwhile, after Haman had left him at the gate, Mordecai heard whispering in the bushes. It was the king's cook and butler plotting to kill the king.
Tonight I'll poison the king's soup,
said the cook.
And I'll serve it to him, said the butler. Death to the tyrant.
Immediately Mordecai wrote a note and gave it to the guard. Take this to the king, he said. It will save his life. The king was lifting a spoonful of soup to his lips when the guard gave him the note. It said, Your Highness, don't eat the soup. It has been poisoned by the cook and butler. Your faithful subject, Mordecai. The king called the cook and butler and ordered them to taste the soup. They trembled and refused.
Taste it,
Shouted the king. They did, and both fell over dead.
call the prime minister,
The king ordered. When the gallows were finished, Haman rushed to the king to arrange Mordecai's hanging. But first the king asked him,
how should I reward someone who has done me the greatest service anyone can do?
Why, your majesty,
replied Haman, sure the king meant him,
you should dress him in your own robes, give him 10,000 pieces of silver and gold, and have him led through the city on your finest horse in a great parade.
Excellent,
cried the king.
You yourself may bring Mordecai here, and you may lead his horse in the parade.
Haman almost swallowed his false teeth.
Do you mean Mordecai the Jew?
He croaked.
If that's what he is,
said the king,
that's who I mean. He saved my life.
And so all was done as Haman had suggested. He muttered curses as, instead of hanging Mordecai, he led him on the king's stallion through streets of cheering people. Even being a guest at the queen's banquet later didn't cheer Haman up.
Ask for the stars,
the king said to Esther,
and they shall be yours.
I ask, sire, only that you answer one question. What would you do to someone that planned the death of me and all my people?
Why, I would hang that person,
said the king.
From gallows 50 cubits high.
Your prime minister, Haman, sire, is that person. For I am a Jew, and so is my cousin Mordecai. And on the 13th day of the 12th month, Haman has ordered the death of all Jews.
Why, so he has, said the king. I completely forgot. I don't even remember why he wanted to do such a stupid thing. Guards, he cried, take him away.
Haman was hung on his own gallows the very next day. Mordecai became prime minister and went to live in the palace, where he could be close to his dear cousin Esther. And on the 13th day of the month of Adar, all the Jews had a great celebration, and to this day they still do. It is called Purim, after the lots Haman cast. Everyone laughs, dances, makes noise, and tells the story of Esther and Mordecai. And all that remains of Haman is his name, as part of the word Hamantaschen, a delicious pastry shaped like his hat, and for that we may thank him. The